Hey guys, welcome to the another episode of Chulas Pero Mulas. I'm super excited for this guest that I'm gonna have on today. He's not only a guest, but he's part of my family. He is my family. He is somebody that I admire. I've always looked up to you, Bernie.
Sorry.
Before I introduce you, I want to tell you that I've always looked up to you. I know that I'm a little bit older than you, but we're going to talk a little bit about why I admire you so much and why you're so important in my life. But I want to introduce you guys, Fernando Pantaleon. He's my cuñado, my friend, somebody that I've spent a bunch of time with during really important parts of my life. So welcome, Fernie, and thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your life to talk about some of the important things.
Hey, yeah, I mean, no, thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I want to also congratulate you on your podcast, on your success. You've had a few guests, and I've every time I go outside and walk or run, I have you on my podcast, especially you and Laura, and then the last one was Maite. It was very interesting podcast, and you guys had me cracking up. I mean, I could tell you guys bits of each podcast. When Laura came on, and like I was like six times in the house. I mean, six
I
times
know, right?
she got in trouble. And then with my dad, I think it was funny with my dad when she's like, "Oh my God, I heard noises in my
I was
parents'
like, you
room."
what? Drama.
So yeah, yeah. So, but yes, but these are the kind of podcast that I like to listen to, and I'm telling you, it's just I'm very excited to be here. So thank you again for inviting me.
Oh, thank you, Bernie. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everybody that takes the time to indulge me in some of the crazy ideas that I have, because I have a lot of crazy ideas that go through my brain. Some of them are crazier than others, but this is kind of something that I wanted to do, and I'm really grateful to everybody that has accepted my invitation. With this, I'm going to take a few moments to say, if I have sent you guys an invitation and you guys are not okay with coming on the podcast, which I completely understand, just say no. I'm not gonna. I won't be mad. I won't be mad, and I'll stop bugging you guys, because I don't want anybody to feel like I'm harassing anybody or doing anything like that. That's never been my intention. So with that, I'm gonna lead it. I'm gonna lead this to the first question, Bernie. So as I said earlier, guys, Bernie is my cuñado, but he's also like my little brother. I think I'm not gonna say little anymore, Fernie, because I think that you and I kind of, you're only a year younger than me. So I feel like a lot of the things that we've gone through life, like we've done it together because we're so close in age,
Right,
right?
right,
Uh, but for some reason, I think my perception of you has always been my little brother, because you're Cruz's little brother.
right, right.
And it's, well, if you're his brother and I'm basically, your sister, you're my little, I don't know, like that's how I see you in my brain. And so every time I think of you, I think of my little brother, but just by the name. You're an amazing man, you're an amazing human being. And but yes, I think about you. When I think about you, I always think of my brother, and you're always included as my brother. And everything that I want and wish for my brothers, I wish for you
No, I
also.
appreciate
And
that.
it's always been like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And you're right, because we did grow up together. I mean, I think of you as a sister, and your sister's like my family, because we grew up together, and we've had some crazy times. We could talk about that later on, but yeah, growing up, and you were there for me during some hard times too. So, you were there for when I needed a shoulder to cry on, and as a sister, and it's just we could talk about that, later on. But yeah, again, you guys are family. You guys are. I look at you guys as like my family, my sisters, and my brothers with Joey and Junior. So, and your mom también, your mom and your parents. I mean, they're parent figures to me, because as you know, we my brother and I didn't really grow up with our parents. So. We could talk about that a little. When I don't remember the time. I don't remember the how I came to the United States. I kind of, it's like I vaguely remember. I think I was maybe 4 or 5 years old when I came to the United States. My dad brought me my brother and I to Arizona. Obviously, we crossed the border, and as children, we didn't know if it was right or wrong. We just knew, oh yeah, we're going to the United States. So we grew up in Glendale, Arizona. We were there for a few years. The earliest memory I have is going to kindergarten, and the reason why I remember the reason why I remember kindergarten was because we had really came back from Mexico, and I didn't know English very well, so my dad had married his wife, my stepmom, and kindergarten went by, and they held me back. They held me back because they wanted me to learn English better. So, and I
Oh,
thought I was kind
okay.
of, well, now that I think about it, I kind of thought, like, was I dumb that I flunked kindergarten? So,
No.
but it's a joke I use with my kids now, like, so, but
Yeah.
yeah, so, you know, we we grew up in Arizona. And it was pretty hard. It was pretty hard because I don't think we had that love from our parents that normal, I guess, other kids would have, because our life was our childhood was pretty much work in agriculture with our dad. I remember, we went to school. Um, we went to school, and after school we would help my dad um work in the fields, during the week. And so we didn't really have that time to really um we had time to play it, but not as much as we would like to as other kids. But we thought it was normal going to work with my dad after school, And during that time, my dad used to work for like we say, depending on how much boxes you would pack, or how much, by piece count. Yeah, like a piece count, you would work by piece count, and the piece counts were the boxes. It depends on how many boxes you would have at the end of the day, and the more boxes he had, the more boxes we would get paid. He would get paid. So that's what he would use us to. And I remember he would use my brother as cutting the whatever it was, like lettuce, mustard, or whatever the vegetable was. Um, and I would be packing. I would be packing the vegetables inside the boxes. So they would throw everything in a bunch, and now pack the boxes up. So the more boxes we packed, the more we got paid. Well, he got paid. So that's kind of how I remember my childhood till maybe about maybe I was 12, 13 years old. I do remember though, and my brother makes fun of me all the time too, because I do remember that, and I live in Texas now, and until this day, everybody here in Texas has boots, and I, and I told my brother that I would never buy boots, because when we were kids, they traumatized us. Our stepmom they made us go in boots to school and in shorts. And I was like, oh my God, it's like, so till this day. And it was funny because we would wear those long shorts, like those shorts up to the knees and stuff. And I remember wearing cowboy boots to
Yes.
school. Yeah,
Como
yeah,
Kiko,
pretty
kind of
much,
como Kiko
pretty
or
much.
Ñoño.
And I felt like Ñoño because I would wear overalls too. I,
Oh my,
So I'm kind of traumatized with
I'm
boots
sorry,
because
Bernie. I'm sorry you had to
till
go
this
through
day I
that.
don't have any cowboy boots because of that. So, but who knows? But yeah, but I think again, our childhood was pretty much working all the time with helping my dad and my stepmom, trying to get that piece count up so we can make a little bit of money. And and then our weekends. I remember during the summers on the weekends we would also go to after he would work with his job in the farm, we would also go to other places, other farms, to pick onions. big onions. And again, that was a piece count too. So the more stacks we would fill up, the more we would get paid during the day. And I remember on Saturdays, every kid would want to go to watch Saturday cartoons. We would watch Saturday cartoons, but not every Saturday. We would during the onion season, we
Mm-hmm.
would go on the weekends and pick onions. We would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and and probably be done maybe like 11 or 12 because of the the summer heat. Summers was really really hot in Arizona. It's really hot in Arizona, so we would only maybe
Yeah.
work to like 12 or 11 or 12 during the day. But that's a bit. That's kind of how I remember. We went to I went to Landmark Elementary. I don't really have that many memories that I could say something was really exciting. Like I said, we just went to school, and after school we went to work with my dad, help him out. There was those times. We had good times too. We had sometimes when my dad was he had a little bit of money, we would go up to the mountains and just kind of like look around and hike. But those times were rare. Those I could count those with my hands all the time that we actually, we actually felt that, my dad spent time with us. Because he was always working, he was always trying to make a better life for us, you know. So, yeah. And then like, I guess, what, maybe 13 or 14 years old, we started, getting a little bit older, a little bit wiser, I guess. Um, and I remember Cruz. He got a job in his first job was in a bowling alley, and I remember that he would go and he had like he had like he had like his first paycheck or whatever, and we ran into some issue with my dad and my stepmom, and you know I it's hard to talk about it because I don't know if it's what's right or what's wrong, but during that time, my brother was everything
Yeah.
to me because he was like my father figure. He's my older brother. He's only 3 years older than I am, but he's always been a father figure, and he was my older brother. But at the same time, he would he would direct me in the right direction. I remember when we were kids, he would
Yeah.
he would tell me, hey, Emma's not your mom, she's your stepmom, so stop calling her mom. And I was like, okay, but that was like when I was a kid. So, but anyways, funny story that I don't remember this, but my brother says I did this, so I'll take it a word for it. So I guess when we came from Mexico, I was so young, and my stepmom didn't have like she didn't know how to be a mom. So I guess she saw me as a kid or as a young what, toddler or whatever. So my brother said that they used to give me a bottle. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
like, what?
Bernie,
I don't remember that, but hey, I
you're
was I was I was
little.
four, but
Yeah,
4-year-olds don't drink bottles.
I know, but yeah, I mean, there's kids that, I mean, they use a bottle until they're a little bit older. So you probably just needed to, you hadn't been weaned,
Yeah,
maybe, and
so I
that's why
don't know,
you
but
needed a
I mean,
bottle.
I don't remember that very well, but it might have happened. So, but anyways,
No.
so going back to that story with my brother. Um, during that time, teenage years, kids rebel. They rebel. Um,
Yeah.
I remember my dad would always, he would always want us to help him with work and help him contribute, financially in the house. And my brother, we would always do that, during all of our childhood, we would do that. Which I'm grateful for my dad that he taught us, the value of work. So I am grateful for that, and I do appreciate him
Okay.
teaching us that value. But as a kid, we want to be kids too. So I think my brother wanted to do the same thing. He was a teenager. He was what,
Yeah.
16 years old when he first got his job in a bowling alley. And I remember he got a paycheck, and my dad wanted the paycheck, and my brother was kind of against that. Like, no, I work hard for this, this check. Let me let me have a little bit of the money, you know. So there was a little bit of arguments. My dad, little disagreements, you know.
Yeah.
My dad wanted more contributions, and um, but I remember that I remember what kind of made us who we are today is, independent. I remember when, you know, uh, I remember this very, 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 very well. Is, we were eating lunch. My brother was going to go to work, and we were eating lunch, and my stepmom, was telling us, hey, um, just talking bad stuff about my mom, and that pissed us off, and my brother,
Mm-hmm.
she said, this is why your mom, is not here with us no more, and this and this and that. And what's funny was that, you know I knew the story, because my brother had told me the story, right? um
Yeah.
and and she offended my brother by her telling him that.
Yeah, of
So
course.
my
That's
so so
hurtful.
so my brother so my brother stormed out. He went to work. Um and then, my dad came home. He was still at work, and I was in my room, like, kind of worried, because what's gonna happen. And my dad, my stepmom told her story, told her side of the story to my brother, to my dad, and it turned the story around. And when my dad came home, he
Hmm.
pretty much he pretty much kind of told her story. I mean, took her story, instead of, our story. Um, so so that
Yeah.
kind of, elevated to disagreements and yelling, and finally my brother said, you know what? Oh, no, my dad actually just said, you know what? My dad pretty much just kicked him out. Pretty much kicked out my brother. He was 50, 16 years old. Like, um,
Hmm.
he kicked out my brother, and
Yeah.
because my brother thought, he thought that my brother, was old enough, and, uh, took my stepmom's word for it, and of what had happened. Um, and my brother left, and I remember that those couple of days, I think it was about a week or so. I was so worried about my brother, because I don't know anything about him. I don't know where he was at and so forth. But we had a window, and I remember one time he knocked on my window. He knocked on the window of our room. And he's like, hey, bro, I'm over here, with my friend, Behan was his. I think it was Behan. Yeah, it's Behan with his friend was Behan, I think, or another guy, another kid that lived around the corner. I forgot what his name was. But he came, and he's like, hey, just give me some clothes. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, bro, no problem. So I gave him like two, three pairs of change of clothes, and I remember, and then he took off. He told me, he's like, I'm gonna take off to California, and
No, flirting. I know. I mean, I know the story, but I know how it hurts me still to this day. So I understand.
it's crazy because I look up to him so much. He's like
Yeah.
my hero. So anyway, so he took off, told me, so like, yeah, I'm gonna go to California, and if you want, call me collect. I'm gonna stay with my grandma. I'm see if I can stay with my grandma, whatever. And like, all right, cool. So I gave him clothes, and then I think it was the next day, the next day, or the next, when I came back from school. Um, my dad confronted me and said, "Hey, why did you give clothes? Why did you give Cruz clothes?" I'm like, what are you talking
Hmm.
about? She's like, yeah. She, Emma came in, and she said that some of his clothes is missing. So for them
Wow.
to notice, like, 3, 4 pairs of pants or shirts, whatever, it meant a lot. Like, wait a
Hmm.
minute, what's going on? So why are you coming in checking what, or whatever? So I'm thinking they heard him come in, and she probably just turned things around again. And I'm making her sound like she's a bad woman. She's not a bad woman. She tried, to be a mother figure. But us,
Yeah.
we never got that. We never got that feeling. We never got that feeling of of her caring for us as somebody else would, as a real mother, or a warm, not warm love, like how can I explain this? It was a cold love. It was just like you're there because you're there. It wasn't really like that love,
Yeah.
that feeling that you feel from us.
Like you wanted, like you didn't
Right,
feel
right.
wanted. You didn't feel like you were
Right,
wanted there.
exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel like we were just there. We felt like we were just there because because my dad brought us there, you know. So we were
Yeah.
just there. So anyway, so he took off, and I remember calling him collect all the time, and we would talk and stuff, and I'm like, bro, I miss you so much, man. I want to go ahead and I want to go see you. And he's like, well, hey, just be patient, ask my dad if he lets you come over here, whatever. So a year passed, and it was pretty sad because I didn't have nobody to bully me no more. I had nobody call me fatso. I had nobody call me,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you
Okay,
you
big
know, like
brothers
big
do.
brothers do, exactly, So
Yeah.
so that year passed, right? And I really don't remember that much of that year, but I remember I was in junior high. I was in seventh grade. I switched from I switched to seventh grade. I went to seventh grade. And I remember the school was a cotton bowl or whatever. And I remember in my seventh grade, I was trying to keep busy, so let make the year go by fast. But I remember that the next summer came, right? And I told my dad, I go, hey dad, ¿sabe qué? Pues quiero ir a ver a mi hermano, pues ya tengo un año sin verlo y lo quiero ir a ver a California. And he's like, okay, ¿sabes qué? Te voy a dejar ir, para un tiempo, un mes o 2 meses. Like, okay. So I was all excited, man. I remember I was all excited, get packing up about a week early, just to go see him and stuff. And so he took me to the bus stop. I went to California, and I'll tell you what, we used to visit California all the time when we were kids, for like a weekend and stuff. But I don't know what it was about this time that I was more excited because I love California. My heart's in California, and
Mhm.
and when I knew I was gonna go visit my brother, man, it's just I loved it even more because I knew I was gonna be with him for a couple weeks,
Mhm.
for a few weeks. Um, so I came over here, and I think my brother was working. He was working, but he would come home in the afternoon. I was living with my grandma. We're living in the summer apartment right there off of on Fifth Street, between Fifth and First, over that Santa Ana River. I think at the time, it was called Bentley Park. So I went over there for the summer, and then I remember we were I forgot what it was, but it was time for me to go. It was time for me to go back to Arizona. But I remember my stepmom came about a week early, and I wasn't expecting her. We weren't expecting her. I remember we were with my with one of my aunts right there in Santana off of a Rate Street, and we were there, and as a kid, I was sad because I didn't want to go because first I was surprised. I was surprised that she came earlier than I expected. Um, and then she's like, let's go. I'm like, oh, but I still have a week. She's like, no, your dad wants you to go. Your dad wants you to go now. So like, okay. And as a kid, I didn't want to go, so I started crying and I just bawling like a little baby, because I don't want to go. I don't want to leave my brother again. So I remember going, and then when we got, I remember we left on a Friday morning in California. We went back home in the Greyhound, and we got down Friday evening. And when I got there, my dad was there, and I told my dad, I go, hey dad, I go, yeah, I got home too early. I still wanted to be with my brother, um, and somehow things got turned around again, and they're saying that I was kind of like a little, girl, and this and that, which I was, but it made it sound like
but
it made it. Yeah,
but there's nothing wrong with it.
there wasn't, because there wasn't,
Cool.
and I told my dad, I think I was 14 at this time, 14 going, probably maybe going on 15. And I told my dad, I go, hey dad, I go, I was 14, and I go, hey dad, I go, I want to be with my brother. He's like, you want to be with your brother? So like, yeah. And I'm not gonna rephrase the words he said, but he said, okay, go with your brother. So on a Friday night, we talked about it, and then on a Saturday, he took me to the Greyhound, and he goes, all right, he said, good luck. He said, good luck, California. He didn't really say good luck, just goes, bye, go to. But no, but pretty much, he said, pretty much say, yeah, yeah, pretty much, so, but and that's when my California life began, with my brother, and I remember I was going 14, I was going 15, and he was in high school. He was a senior in high school, and we were living with one of my uncles on Gunther Street, right? Which to this day I love him, man. He's he's like he would be him and my other uncles were all father figures to me, because I felt that they opened the door for us.
That was your tío Mariano, right?
Yeah, my tío Mariano. When I first got there, we lived a little bit with my grandma, and my tío Isidro, and mi tío Marcial. But then later on, we moved over to my tío Mariano's house, and my tío Mariano just gave us all love. He looked at us like we were his sons. My dad wanted our uncles to. Our uncles wanted our uncles to pretty much close the door on us, but our uncle said, "No, you guys you're crazy. These are my nephews. We're not gonna close the door on them." So we went, and we just we were there, and I started my 8th grade year there. I think I was 15. I started my 8th grade at Doig high school, not high school, middle school. Junior high, Doig, and I remember the name because it's like Doig, people make fun of it. So, and that's when I started meeting friends, started meeting people. I started, pretty much not really worrying about pretty much working all the time. My brother made me focus in school.
Okay,
that was my brother's focus all the time. He said, go school. But, I still want a little bit, want a little bit of cash,
Yeah.
But it's funny because during the time, and you touched on this topic too with Laura about working in the swap meets and stuff,
Yeah.
So I did the same thing.
You did the same thing.
Yeah. I remember my first swap meet job when I was in junior high. We used to get up like around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and we used to go to everyone that was putting up the puestos. We're like, you need help?
Yeah, I remember you were a hustler.
Yeah.
You were a hustler.
Yeah, so it wasn't much. It was like 20, 30 bucks, 25, 30 bucks, maybe 40 bucks a day, but depending on the vendor, right? So, but yeah, so
right.
It's funny because here I thought I was gonna go and spend all my teenage years with my brother and stuff, and I remember one time he came home, so like, hey bro, guess what? It's like, I'm going to the Marines. And I was like, fuck, and I was sad because I know I was gonna lose, because I was gonna lose him again, but at the same time I was happy for him because that's what he wanted to do, and So I was like, oh no, what's gonna happen? What's going on? Are you going to war? I was 14, I was 15 years old, yeah. So, but
yeah, you're a kid.
yeah. So then he left, and I remember going to, I was living with my tío Mariano, and I remember my tío Mariano would always take us like after boot camp, right? That was like when I saw him in his dress blues, man, that was like one of the most proudest moments I felt for him, because man, just those dress blues, and he was so skinny,
And he was so proud.
So proud, man. So
yeah.
So Yeah. So then after boot camp, I remember my tío Mariano would make every effort to go like on the weekends to go see him and stuff, or not to go see him, but to go pick him up and come home for the weekends. Do you remember?
Mhm.
He used to come home.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
I
used to come
remember
home for the
that.
weekends and stuff. So he made every effort because he loved it. My tío loves us. He wanted the best for both of us. But I remember when he did get off boot camp, we went to Tijuana though. We had a nice big dinner over there in Tijuana and stuff. I think one of my best friends went with us too. Luis Villapando. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah, I
went with us, and
remember.
we had a blast. It was so fun. Um, and he would go with us too sometimes to go visit him and to go bring him. But yeah, that was fun. That was like when he got out of boot camp then, and then he got news that I think he was gonna go to Japan, Okinawa, I think it was, and and now he was like he's gonna be even further, right? So I was like, man, I came over here to be with you, and you're taking off. Now you're gonna be even further. But at the same time, he was far, but I always felt his love because he would always say, hey, you know what, bro? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna give you money for you to for your rent. So you don't have to worry about working. I'm gonna pay your rent. But if you want to work and help you out, help yourself with some extra money for yourself, go for it. That's when I started doing the hustle or whatever, working the swap meet and stuff for a while.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was going from vendor to vendor until I worked with my other friend. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So his dad hooked me up and helped me. And I stayed up stable with him for years, working tire shop with him. And then when the little man got older, and then we had his own stand in.
Yeah.
We used to drive to El Monte swap meet, and we used to work over there. Yeah, and it was funny because it was me, him, and Pocho. We Pocho, Pocho, we will go out there and help little man with the tire shop and the business over there. So, but those were good times. But again, we had fun, but at the same time, I think that showed us. Cruz showed me how to be responsible. You know what I mean? Because during the time and during that time in what it was 90s, in Santana, everything was you get stopped by the cops for everything because you were wearing a white shirt and Dickies. Yeah,
I know, huh? I remember there was I feel like there was like a lot of racial profiling going on around that time, ¿verdad? Porque me acuerdo que si nomás miraban like a group of Mexican kids or Latino kids like hanging around together, like it was a sure like stop. Like siempre los paraban. And I kind of remember, and especially because where we lived, I mean, and the area that we lived up, like between Jackson and First Street and Harbor, I mean, it was like, that was Santanita. And I felt like it was very like, it was a gang area. And I think everybody just kind of knew it was a gang area. So, ¿verdad? So I kind of feel that, I mean, I don't know. I never, yo nunca tenía miedo. That's kind of like the thing, porque I feel like we all grew up kind of, we were just tough kids. I think because we just kind of had to be tough kids because we kind of lived in a tough area, if you think about it, right? I mean, it wasn't, I mean, people used to get jammed, people used to get, and it happened all the time, but I think it just kind of became normal for us. And we didn't like, okay, well, that's where we live. What the fuck, what else was it supposed to be? It was just where we live.
right. Yeah, we had to adapt to that culture, to the gang culture. I remember walking home one time with my brother from my cousin's house on Hewley Street. We're going back to the house on Gunther, and Gunther's like just the next street over.
Right.
Um, and we got stopped by the cops, and we got pulled over. My brother had a little knife with them, and they put us they put us in the gang file
Really?
just because again just because the way we were dressed. They pulled us over, they sat us down, they took a picture of us, they put us in they put it in, as gang affiliated.
You guys were minors too,
Yeah.
huh? Weren't you guys minors?
I think Cruz was I
And
think
see,
Cruz was an
wasn't
adult.
that against the law even back
I don't
then?
know, but I think I was like maybe 15, 16 years old, and he was still in high school. Yeah, he was still in high school. I was like maybe 15 or 16.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I remember Chris telling me that story, and I think he said that he told the cop like he's a kid or you
Yeah.
can't do that, or he said something,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the cop got pissed off, and he's like, "It's because he was like we were minors. He wasn't supposed to be doing that, but he was." I'm like, that should happen
Yeah,
all
it
the
did.
time. That should happen
It-
all the time.
Especially at during the 90s. During the night, it was like you said,
Yes.
it was all gang infested. You would hear drive-bys all the time,
Mhm.
especially in that neighborhood, which is and I remember the whole neighborhood used to hang out right there, right in front of my uncle's house, right there where
Mhm.
there's a big wall, and it would always be tagged up or graffiti, with
Yeah.
the neighborhood's name and stuff. And I thought it was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was art, and I thought it was cool hanging out with those people too, because I did hang out with the people, I did hang out with the neighborhood,
I remember.
yeah, I did hang out with the neighborhood, I did.
When you lived, you lived in the
Yeah,
neighborhood. You were
in
part
the
of
heart
the
of it. Yeah,
neighborhood.
we lived in the heart of it,
Yeah.
So we grew up with that neighborhood, so we adapted, but at the same time, I knew what was right and what was wrong, even though sometimes we were peer pressure to do some bad stuff, but I knew it could
Yeah.
have long-term effects on us, pero but yeah, I think at the time, you guys lived off of Bewley, right? Not on Bewley, on Jackson and
Yeah.
¿cómo se llama
Well, we lived cuando apenas nos fuimos a vivir ahí. I was 15 when we first moved there on Bewley, on the other side of
Bewley,
like.
yes,
Remember,
yes, I
we're on
remember
the other
because my
side
father
of the
used to
wall.
climb the fence.
Yes. So that's where we moved first. So that was like, that's why I met Cruz and you, and actually I met you somewhere. I don't know how I met you, but I remember I didn't even know that you guys were brothers. I didn't know that you guys were brothers until one time we were gonna go sell flowers together, and I told you about the flowers, and I'm like, hey, you want to go sell flowers? Remember that?
Yes,
And I was
yes.
like, you want to go sell flowers? And you're like, yeah, sure, So whatever. You're like, oh, I'll just jump the wall. And it was like the wall, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, so you lived on the other side of the wall. So when I met Cruz, I was like, wait a minute. That kid is his brother. So I didn't know. Like, I honestly didn't know that. But somehow I met you, and I got you involved in the flower business, selling flowers in the street. And yeah.
It's fun. I was listening to your podcast the other day too, and you guys remember that, and it's like, we got into that box cart, remember? Yeah, and you guys brought up a good point. Like, damn, what kind of people were we getting into? Because
that's the thing. Like, we were all kids, and nobody was keeping track of them. Like, you just went. And we just went. We're just like, we're gonna go. I think I used to tell my mom we're gonna go sell flowers, but I don't remember ever being asked like, pues con quién van, a dónde van, quién las va a recoger. It was just like, oh, we're just gonna get picked up in the corner, like random ass motherfucker, white guy, like. Seriously, I was like, I think about it, I'm like, oh my god, we could have been sex trafficked so many times, so many times. I'm glad we didn't.
I remember
that was crazy.
But also though, it's like, and I didn't know this till like later on. Well, way later on, like just maybe recent months ago, where the guy would give us a quarter. Right, for every $5 that we told or whatever,
something like that.
And then just recently, you told me, well, shit, I used to hustle. I used to give this. I used to sell this much for this. I used to get more money. Like, fuck, why didn't I think of that with that time?
I know. No, I didn't either. And so every time Noah would go, she would come back with like $60, whatever, whatever the rate was. But then Claudia and I would hustle, and it was like if the hours were 5, we would sell them for 7. Especially if if we were going out into like, like it's, sometimes I think we would get dropped off like in Orange or some of the like nicer areas. And so I think people just saw some Mexican kids, and they probably thought that pobrecitas, they're so sorry for us. And so people used to like sometimes they wouldn't buy flowers. They'd just be like, "Hey, it's sweetie here," and I'm just like, "Okay," And then now I think about it, they're like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, if I thought like I was homeless, or I have no fucking idea." And so I would come home like with like 120 sometimes. I would like double my money because I was out there hustling. And then I just assumed that you guys knew about it. So I don't know why I never told you guys.
No. I would come home with like $5, $6, maybe $10 for the whole night, and here you guys would be coming on like, all right, and I would count my quarters and shit.
I'm sorry for not teaching you the hustle, man.
And I was like, in my mind, I was like, yeah, because they're probably, because they're girls, they're probably, people buy more flowers for them and stuff.
You know what? That may have something to do with it. I have no idea. I kind of don't want to know anymore. I'm good with that. But
no,
but I mean, those are I think those are interesting parts in our lives because, like reflecting now, and I think I try to cover this every time I have an opportunity, to understand how like we became like tough kids because it was like out of necessity, basically, right? Like
It was. Yeah, it was.
The kind of things that we had to do to help make some money. Like all those things those weren't things that, most kids that had parents that could afford and, do for them. Those weren't things that kids were out there doing. Most of the kids that I knew were doing very similar things because I think it was like the kids that we knew, right? The poor kids.
Yeah.
We were fucking poor kids. Let's be real. When I think, if we're comparing like poor, well, I had a mom and dad, so I understand that part of it. But as far as money, like we were all pretty poor. We lived in very small houses with very little room, with basically no privacy, and we kind of had to go out and work to get our own things because no había. Like, and when we think about it, when I see myself and I see like the difference between us and the way we raised our kids, shit, Bernie, I can't emphasize how proud I am of all of us, because I feel like we broke like so many of those like traditions that we could have kept going. You know what I'm saying? Like we could have just kept them on because that's just the way we were raised, and we could have just not questioned it. But somehow like we knew that it was wrong. Like we knew that we shouldn't like why are we gonna have a lot of kids if we can't afford it? Like why are you gonna do that if like why are we gonna have like 5 kids and then just live in a 1-bedroom if we already know how it feels? Like I fucking know how it feels. I didn't want to do that to other people because I already went through that experience. So then all I can do and all I can say is like I'm so fucking proud. Like because we may not be wealthy when it comes to like societal standards. Oh, we've made all these millions, whatever, however people measure, wealth. We're wealthy because we learned so many things that helped us break like these generational curses, ¿verdad? Exploiting our children for necessity, because I think a lot of parents exploited their children por necesidad, porque si, that meant que iba a haber más dinero en la casa. And perhaps in Mexico, it was accepted, it was okay to do that. But I feel like we were in the US, and I feel like that shouldn't have happened. And I still feel like that. Like that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But again, we have to be like, I have to be careful with that and understanding that our parents did the very best they could with what they had, with what we, right?
Yeah.
So then it kind of makes me not feel so angry at them. Just understand that it was something really
Yeah.
difficult. They did the best they could. Did they fuck up? Hell yeah, they did. But then again, I wouldn't be me. You wouldn't be you. You know, if we hadn't gone through those struggles. So at the end, everything kind of, you know, turned out okay. But we did a really hard thing, which was basically break those patterns that from the culture que no nos sirven. No nos sirven, you know? And I talked about it with Maite, you know, on the last podcast. And I told, you know, I said, it's really, really difficult because, you know, we are labeled. People label us even from our own family. They label us if we go outside of the norm. I don't even know. I'm gonna say norm because I think that I'm just thinking about cultural norms, but we're called different things. Like we're called like viven como los gabachos. You know that they fucking say that. They say that because you know we were able to, because we're very fortunate, because we work really, really hard to have the things that we have, to, you know, to try to give our children a better life than where we had, to live differently than the way, you know, we were raised. And so for that, sometimes, you know, we're kind of looked down on, and I think that's fucked up. Like, I think that's fucked up because I don't think it's progress. I don't think it's cultural progress. I think that kind of like nos ayuda just kind of like separate, because I'm like, why do I want to be around people that are going to think negatively of me? Why are they going? Why should I surround myself with people that are not aligned with what I think? Why? They're just going to make me feel like shit anyways. That's not family. That's not what I call family. That's not what I call, you know, helping and supporting each other. And so, yeah, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. And I've never said it before, but I have a very big problem with that, because I think that's the thing that keeps us down as, you know, as I'm going to say Mexicans, because I believe that has to do with more with the Mexican culture.
Yeah. And you touched up on this on your last one of your podcasts, is, you know, our own Mexican, our own raza, los envidia. We're like, we envy each other, because, and why should we? You know, we should, like, no, embrace and say, oh, I'm glad Cruz and I have a nice house, you know, or I'm glad, you know. But some people, like you said, some people look at us and like, you know, they think they're all bad now because, you know, they got a house, whatever. No, it's not that. It's the decisions we made when we were young, you know. And you guys, my brother and you know, you guys made wise decisions when you guys were younger. And that's why we have what we have now. You know, I have what I have now because I've always looked at my brother's decisions, and like I always said, I always try to like live like him, because he's my hero, he's my brother, and I always take his good advice and I leave his bad advice out, right? So I think that's what separates like me and my brother, because we were destined to fail, and we didn't fail. You know, we were people wanted us to fail, and none of our like, you know, our immediate family, but people looked at us and like, oh yeah, they're gonna fail because they don't have their parents, or they're, you know, they're gonna go into the gang lives, they're gonna go into jail, they're gonna go to jail, they're gonna go this and that, and we didn't, because we made decisions. You know, we made some good decisions when we were younger, especially, you know, like I said, you know, when we grew up in the neighborhood, my brother and I, you know, he would always, like I said, he would always say, go to school, go to school, go to school. Did I fuck up? Yeah, I fucked up when I was in high school. Did I ditch? Yeah, I went to ditching parties. Did I, you know, you know, run from the cops? Yeah, I ran from the cops. I did a lot of stuff when we were young, but at the same time, I've always wanted to make my brother proud, and you know, and one of the things that he would always say is, I'll back you up, but you got to be doing the right things, you know. And you know, some of the stuff I didn't tell him I did the wrong things, you know, but pero, you know, but yeah, you know, during our teenage years, we did make a lot of bad mistakes, you know, a lot of bad decisions, but everybody does that, you know.
Of course, that's how we learn.
This guy that we were at a party when we celebrated David's 21st birthday in Vegas, this guy was talking about coke and stuff, and I'm all like, no, dude, I don't do that. He's all like, and I kept saying that. He's all like, no, I don't either. So I'm like, do you have some? no, dude, I don't have any coke. Oh no, they're like, no, man, I'm just kidding, man, I'm just kidding.
Oh
He's
my
like, no,
God.
but seriously, he's like, but he kept saying, no, but seriously, do you have some? I'm like, no, dude.
He's like, I
Yeah,
don't tell
it
anybody if
was
you
fun.
know.
I won't tell anybody.
Oh my gosh,
I'm not gonna say no. I'm not gonna say any
that's so
names. You know, I don't
funny.
want to. I don't want to. I don't want to put that. I don't want to put that person out there. Um. But yeah. But yeah. Like, you know, going back to our cultures. Like, yeah, you're right. You know, um, nuestro propio raza sometimes they're not, son los más envidiosos. You know, y como tú dices, we're wealthy. I feel wealthy because I have what I need. That's it. I don't because I don't want anymore. I think I have what I need, you know, to be wealthy, and that's having a close relationship with my family, and having a roof over our head. With that and a job. With that said, that's to me, I'm wealthy. You know, that spells wealth for me. Other people might spell wealth like, oh well, you know, having a lot of money or expensive cars and so forth. I really don't care about all that stuff. I just care about, you know, having enough to go by, and have a close relationship with my family.
Woo-hoo.
You know, with you, my brother, you know, my cousins, my uncles. You know, which I kind of feel bad 'cause I haven't talked to them in a while. But you know, but I let them know that I love them. You know, even though sometimes, you know, de lejos, pero you know, they're always in my heart. But yeah, but you know, when you have your family, it's like you guys, you and my brother, you guys made everything to have what you guys have, and to provide for the girls, you know, because the girls were everything for you guys, and you guys did everything for them, just like me. Like, you know, I see my brother doing everything for his family. I'm doing the same thing because I want the best thing for my family, you know. Um, now, you know, now our kids are older and stuff, and you know, they're doing their own thing, but at the same time, I'm still close with my boys, you know, and I'm sure you guys are close with your girls también, you know. But you guys are good because you guys raised your girls in you know, in the values that are important, which is education, and you know, and doing the right and wrong, you know. So I think we're good in that aspect. Um, I wish everybody in our generation were good too, you know. But sometimes bad decisions lead to, you know, not a bright future. So, but anyways,
I know, I know. No, I mean, it's true. Like, you know, when we think about, like, I think when we think about where we came from, it kind of makes a lot of sense that, you know, that we would feel proud. Why wouldn't we feel proud? And I say it all the time. Like, of course I'm proud. Of course I'm so proud. I'm proud of everything that has led up to, you know, being the people that we became, because we became, you know, the versions of ourselves now because of all these experiences. So yo también, I don't measure wealth with money. You know, I know that, you know, Cruz and I have a difference of, you know, how we view life, but I don't measure it like that, because I feel like if we're good inside, and if we feel like, you know what, I did the best I could. I did. Yo le eché muchas ganas. Like, you know, I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do. Sometimes it didn't come out the way I wanted it to, but I always did it with a good intention. And I think that's the important part. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel el dinero va, like, it is. Like, I remember when I was a kid that, you know, I would hear the older people say, like, el dinero va y viene. Like, it never made sense until this point in life. Like, yes, we've had times when money comes in and we, you know, we could indulge and we could do all these things. And then we have times when, you know, money is scarce, and we go through that because it's life. It's just life, right? We're just going through different stages in life. But, you know, like, yo pienso que lo importante es, like, what, you know, what we make of that life, like, of those decisions. Because eso es lo importante. Like, if you make good decisions, you know that you're going to have a good outcome. It's just going to happen because that's the way it's going to happen. But, you know, I believe that I am a very, very wealthy woman because I have everything that I need now. Even in spite of everything else that happens, like I'm good. Like I'm good, and I think having gratitude like says so much. Like just being grateful, like grateful for everything, good, bad, sad, happy, everything, because everything leads to something, that leads to, us being, who we became. So,
Hey guys, so we're gonna get ready to wrap up this episode. Um, it was really nice to that you accepted my invitation, Fernie. I know that sometimes people are just like, no, I don't want to talk. I don't want to open up old wounds or whatever. But I'm really appreciated. I really really appreciate you, and I'm very appreciative that you took the time out of your life to have a conversation with me and just kind of talk about things that real life stuff, right?
No, Irene, but thank you, Irene. Thank you very much for from the bottom of my heart to even include me in your podcast, to include me in in this platform that you have. Este, I really do appreciate you, appreciate your family, appreciate everything that you're doing right now, and I wish nothing but the best and success for you as well. But thank you, Irene. I love you. I love you from the bottom of my heart. My family loves you. My kids told me to tell you say hello. My kids were like, "Ooh, Dad, you gonna be on a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh my God, tell Tia say hi," and everything. So they're very they're also proud of you too, of your podcast. So
I'm so glad that again that you took the time to to spend a little bit of time with me, Fernie, and just kind of talking about who you are as a person, and then reminiscing of some of our adventures together because we've had a million adventures together. I know, right? I also want to tell you that I believe that you are an amazing human being. I believe that that you are an amazing dad, and I've always admired you as a dad. I admire you so much as a dad because because you nobody taught you how to be that way. Like nobody taught you. You became you like you said, you taught yourself. You taught yourself how to become, and I know that there's probably you probably had a lot of really hard times, but we can see it. I see it in the boys, and I see it in your relationship with your wife, and that always makes me so happy because I know where you came from, and I know your struggles, and I know how hard life has been for you, and because of that, like I admire you so much, Fernie. I admire you. I admire everything about you as a human being, just as a human being, because I think you're an amazing human. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for taking a few moments out of your lives also to take to listen to my chat with Fernie. So again, one of my favorite people in the world. And I will see you guys next time. Again, this is your host Irene, and we'll see you guys next time.